prominent conservative in the country. And some of the things he's saying, that he's nasty because he can't get along with people, I started thinking, no, that's not it. He's not nasty, and he can get along with people. He doesn't get along with ruling class Republicans who lie through their teeth every election, and then in Washington, D.C., they blow us off, the McConnells and the rest. They massively expand government. They slash the military. They won't secure the border. Of course he's not going to be liked by these people. None of us are. They hate the base. We're the base. We're the Reagan Revolution, the Tea Party, the conservatives. It's us. They don't get along with us. It's not a question of us getting along with them. They're supposed to represent us. So I thought, he's got it upside down. And nobody is speaking out. Nobody. And I want this debate to be the right debate. And Trump to continue to engage issues. He doesn't need to do this. And so I put out a friendly post on my Facebook, which somehow just boomeranged all over the place. And I simply wrote, friendly advice, Donald, and I do mean friendly. Either cut the crap, your accusations this morning that Cruz is Canadian, a criminal, owned by big banks, etc., or you will lose lots and lots of conservatives. And he will. Save the liberal New York City bully tactics for the New York City liberals. Put down your computer keyboard for a few hours, think before you tweet, and collect yourself. You're not politically invincible, regardless of the polls and media. I am already hearing more and more people getting fed up with the low road you're taking against Cruz, which has obviously intensified this morning, Saturday morning. You don't need to attack his honor or attempt to smear his reputation. You can leave that to Mitch McConnell and the New York Times. Engage on real and substantive issues that matter to the country. That matter to the country. Stop playing Mitch McConnell. Stop playing the New York Times editorial board. You're better than that. He's better than that. And so, of course, he did more on Sunday. More. And he can do all of it that he wants. I'm not accepting it. I reject it. The Cruz that won in Texas, the Cruz that got up on the Senate floor, who we said was courageous, who we defended, who we supported, is the same guy. So the tactics used against Ben Carson and the others, they're just not going to work. Unless all of a sudden you and I switch positions and say, okay, well, maybe he is nasty and he doesn't get along. Whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Don't do that. Don't be so quick to abandon people who you've once admired. Don't be so quick to accept these attempts at character assassination when you know they're not true. Don't be so quick to say, boy, that was a bonehead statement about New York, when you know what he said about New York. And I consider this helpful advice, friendly advice, supportive advice. And by the way, whatever the websites put on their headlines or however the media twists what I say, forget about them. Listen to what I say, if you want to. We don't need interpreters. I speak very clear English. Very good English. Ha, ha, ha. I'll be right back.
America's Tyranny Hunter. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Fox doing a whole segment now on natural-born citizenship. Wouldn't it be better if we had whole segments on parts of the Constitution that affect your lives? Isn't it funny they want to talk about natural-born citizenship? Why don't they talk about Article 1 and the power of the purse? or the treaty power, or the 10th Amendment, or the 4th or the 5th, or the 1st or the 2nd. We don't discuss those. I've never seen a segment on that. How about separation of powers? This is my point. The nation is more and more focused on us. And what are we focused on? Crack. That's what we're focused on. How do we expect to persuade people to vote for our candidates? How? I guess we'll just have to keep talking about how Cruz is nasty. Before Cruz was nasty, Trump was nasty. And before Trump was nasty, Ben Carson was a nut. Right? And on and on and on. These boys need to elevate their debate. And you and I need to insist on it. Don't just fall into camps and fall into traps. You and I need to insist on it. There is no savior. Cruz isn't a savior. Trump isn't a savior. None of them are saviors. We're talking about the office of the presidency. We're talking about politicians, whether they're outsiders or insiders. We have to save the country, which I talk about over and over again in the Article 5, which I'll put aside for now. But we can't get caught up in their campaign tactics if their campaign tactics are not in our best interests. We talk about Obama, the I. Well, I'm tired of the I, him. How about we, the people? I expect this from the Democrats. I expect it from the Alinsky-ites. So we need to demand more. Those people in South Carolina on Saturday, when Donald Trump was going on, and then all of a sudden he goes about the banks, like a leftist. The banks, and it's got loans, so there's something wrong with the loans, and the blah, blah, blah. He was booed. He was booed. And not just booed, people were yelling at him. Because those are conservatives and Tea Party activists. And they've been breaking their asses for years and years and years to reach a point where we can finally get a conservative in the Oval Office. And they don't want to hear this crap, and neither do I. Neither do I. I want to hear some stuff, good stuff, about how we're going to get our republic back, about how we're going to address the debt. Trump has led the way on the border. That's why he's so popular. But there's a lot of other issues, too, that need to be addressed. Who can we rely on to rebuild our United States military? Who can we rely on to kick all the Marxists out of the Justice Department? We'll put patriotic Americans and lawyers in there. We'll stop harassing the cops. How are we going to fix the EPA? Have you heard a single candidate talk about the EPA? One! What they're going to do about it? No, you haven't. What are they going to do about it? I'm not going to get caught up in their world, and neither should you. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I already have people calling in here. This is why Trump is great. This is why Cruz is great. They don't even get what I'm saying. They don't even get what I'm saying. Pick whomever you want. But it seems to me if you already have a candidate, you need to prod them to stick to the substance. To stick to the substance. Rubio's been pretty swarmy too, quite frankly. And even more so now, Chris Christie. Chris Christie lies about his own record. Okay, then go after his record. That's perfectly fine. I never supported Sotomayor. Yes, you did. You absolutely did. I never gave a donation to Planned Parenthood. Yes, you did. It's time to stand on their records and to tell us what they're going to do and to tell us how they're different than the other guy. I don't believe any of those Republicans. Any of them. Even Trump, who probably has more loans with more banks and Wall Street than any man in history, I don't think that man's corrupt. I don't think he's owned by the banks. I don't think anyone of them on the stage is corrupt. None of them are corrupt. As a matter of fact, all of them are well-meaning. All of them. All of them. Now, here's cut one from, when is it? This Morning, Fox and Friends, our buddy Brian Kilmeade and Trump. Go.
People like Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin have weighed in, essentially telling you to back off. They were supporting you to a degree, but they don't want you attacking Ted Cruz. What's your reaction?
Let me just stop there and amend that. I don't mind if he attacks Ted Cruz on policy and substance. I mind when you try and destroy a guy's reputation and smear him. Somebody's owned by the banks because they have loans. I guess we're all owned by the banks because most of us have mortgages. What does that mean? I've got a mortgage on a house. I don't even know, what's it with Wells Fargo? Am I owned by Wells Fargo? I don't even know what they do over at Wells Fargo. Big deal. The more successful you are, the more relationships you have with more banks. I would think Trump knows that. I would think all of us know that. So what? You're owned and paid for by the banks? Come on. That's the left. The left does that crap. So no, I don't mind criticizing at all. I don't mind a healthy debate at all. I mind the Alinsky tactics. That's what I mind. Go ahead.
Well, I like both of them, and they've both been very nice, and Rush has been unbelievable to me, and you know, they've been great. But I have to do what I have to do. I want to make America great again. I have to get things done. When you have somebody that can't get along with anybody in Washington, you're not going to get deals done. I mean, you have to get deals done. We can't always keep invoking executive orders like Obama does.
What do you think of that, Nancy? What do you think of that, Nancy? I don't mean about liking me and Rush. I mean, what do you think about that answer? I want to make America great again. I have to get things done. When you have somebody that can't get along with anybody in Washington, you're not going to get deals done. This sounds like McConnell to me, or Orrin Hatch to me, or McCain to me, or Lindsey Graham to me. We want to get a... Here's the deal. What you do is you elect a conservative. You lay the foundation. You create the arguments for a conservative. The conservative, if we fight like hell, hopefully gets elected president. Then the other members of the party start to come along. The president controls the Republican apparatus at that point. He controls who runs the RNC. He has enormous control over what the Republicans do in the House and the Senate. He has enormous control over the entire Republican infrastructure in Washington, D.C. In other words, they have to get along with the president, or they have a problem. I'm not talking about the Democrats. I'm talking about the Republicans. That's the reality. That's how it works. When Reagan became president, I was there. And when Reagan became president, the Republican establishment was all over the place. Well, they had to deal with Reagan. And no, a lot of them didn't like him, even though he was the nicest guy in the world. But he was also a fierce, fierce conservative. And by the way, he didn't become a conservative 3 years before he ran for president. He helped lead a new conservative movement for some 20 years. I'm just correcting the record. So that's a fact. So it's not a matter of we want to elect a president who can get along with Mitch McConnell. We want to elect a president who can get along with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. Why would we do that? We might as well support Jeb Bush, for God's sakes. No. You want to elect somebody who can pull the party to the constitutional conservative side. You want to elect somebody who can have an influence over what's going on in Washington, or nothing's going to change. Not just cut a deal, but advance a cause. Not just cut a deal, but advance a cause. And that's what I'm talking about. Cut two, go.
You know, here's another guy, can't get a deal done, so he just sits down behind the desk, signs an executive order, he gets sued, and let's see what happens in 5 years from now, okay? But that's not the way you do it. Just get Congress, you get them together, you get everybody together in a room you control, you get along, you have dinner, and you make deals. And, you know, everybody hates Ted. It's a very tough thing. They all hate him. I mean, for a lot of reasons. But they
let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who've supported Ted for all these years, do you hate him? Or are you furious with the politicians who got elected and lied to you? When you send somebody to Washington, do you want them to do what you ask them to do? They haven't done anything we've asked them to do. That's why you're furious. What is interesting to me, and one day it'll be written, what's given the rise to Trump in so many respects is your contempt for the very people he wants to cut all these deals with. It's interesting because he is shifting his thinking and his argument. Washington doesn't work. Washington, I will cut it. I'll cut a deal with this one. I'll cut it. It's very, very interesting. Washington, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a question it doesn't work because you don't cut a deal. It's corrupt. It's corrupt. It operates outside the constitutional structure. It's breaking the back of the country. It's not a matter of just cutting deals. It's a matter of advancing liberty. It's a matter of advancing constitutionalism. This is what we need to discuss. This is what we need to hear more of. This is what we need to have the American people think about. This is what we need on Fox, not let's have a debate over birther issues. This is the problem. Now, there's a lot of people in Washington who hate him, he said. There's a lot of people in Washington, ladies and gentlemen, who hate Trump. There's a lot of people in Washington who hate Ben Carson. There's a lot of people in Washington who hate Carly Fiorina. There's a lot of people in Washington who hate you. That's not our standard, is it? I don't think so. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
George Pataki, former three-term Republican governor of New York. You know what he just tweeted out? Any suggestion that Ted Cruz was referring to 9/11 is absurd. He was obviously referring to the liberal values of New York politicians, such as liberal New York politicians like Bill de Blasio, Hillary Clinton, he writes, Donald Trump, New York Governor Cuomo, and Chuck Schumer. Now, you really do have to have an IQ of about 4 to be falling for this. Now, I understand certain partisans for certain candidates love it. I understand all the presidential candidates running say the same thing. Schumer, of course, he is a snake oil salesman. But you don't have to follow along with all these people, folks. You don't have to follow this. Now, we know that's not what he's talking about. How many more shiny objects are we going to follow? Trump has some good arguments to make, and good arguments to make against all the other candidates. So make them. When it comes to this, I am a stick-to-the-issues crowd type, as my brother Rush would say. Stick to the issues. Leave it to the Democrats to go in the mud. And if we have to go in the mud and deal with them, we'll wrestle them in the mud. By the way, did you see all those UFC fights last night, Mr. Producer? My God, I stayed up till 1 in the morning. The Cruz fight and so on, not Ted Cruz, Dominic Cruz. Unbelievable. Very close. Either could have won. Nobody stole. It was just a great fight. There were a number of great fights. I love the UFC. I love MMA. I don't know what it is. I just do. But in any event, this is not the UFC or MMA when it comes to these debates. But I'm sick and tired when Obama does I, and I'm sick and tired when the Republicans, I. It's not about I. It's about we, the people. This is our election. I want to salute George Pataki. I think he's the only one with any guts in the whole state of New York who said, wait a minute. Any suggestion I'm reading Ted Cruz was referring to 9/11 is absurd. And yet everybody's following along because Donald says, look, you know. And by the way, the spin after it, that was his greatest moment. I cringed when he brought it up. He said, why are you doing that like a liberal? Why are you doing that? But there you go. I don't know if it scored or not. I don't much care. It didn't advance the damn ball in any direction for you and me. That's what I'm concerned about. And by the way, you're going to see, you know, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, lib media, not lib media, take everything I say out of context, put the phony headlines on, and then you're going to respond to them rather than listen to what I've said this hour. You should know better. If you're a Levinite, if you've been in my audience a long time, you know better. You know, my friends at AMAC are resolved to continue their mission to restore America's moral compass, to make America better, to save America from liberal ideology. And this is what we want to hear from the candidates. But they can't do it alone. AMAC needs you, and America needs you. AMAC is fighting to stop illegal immigration, to increase border security, to keep us safe from terrorism, to protect our individual liberties, to defund Planned Parenthood, and so much more. You know, when you join AMAC, you're supporting an organization with the courage to fight for the values that have made America great. So, folks, we can't afford to lose this fight. And as an AMAC member, you'll also gain access to a bunch of exclusive benefits and discounts that'll help you save money. Save the America we the people love. Join or renew your AMAC membership at www.amac.us. www.amac.us or call 888-262-2006. That's 888-262-2006. Join or renew your AMAC membership today. AMAC is better for you, and it's better for America. I don't think what I'm saying here is particularly controversial. I don't think what I'm saying here makes me a special pleader for Cruz or anybody else. When you listen to what I said last month about Trump, or the month before that in defense of Carson. I want us to get back on the straight and narrow. I don't care which candidate's dragging us off into the gun. And if they won't stop, then that's going to have an impact on what I think about them and what you should think about them. No question about it. No question about it. But Pataki has the guts to tweet out the obvious, quite frankly, and apparently the obvious doesn't even matter. The obvious doesn't even matter. And it's really stupid for Ted to make the comment about, liberal New York. Oh, okay. Right. He must have been talking about how he hates the cops and how the first responders didn't respond properly to 9/11. And everyone's saying, yeah, that's what he meant. Yeah, that's what... Now, I get the liberals doing that. That's what they do. They lie through their teeth. I know some of you are dug in on a candidate. That's fine. But don't sell your soul. Use your head. I know you will. You wouldn't have been in this audience as long as you've been in this audience. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with me in the least. But don't allow yourself to be manipulated, to be managed, to be positioned. Speak out. Whether it's your candidate or another candidate, speak up. Because if we're going to win the day, we need to win the issues. I'll tell you something else I'm concerned about. After a long, hard-fought primary, you have to bring the different factions of the party together in order to win. You already have Bush people announcing they won't support Trump if he's nominated. You heard Bill Kristol say it. Other people at the Weekly Standard. This backbencher, Pete Wayner, the joke who writes for the New York Slimes, they said they're not going to vote for Trump. My concern is if this keeps up, you're going to have a split among conservatives and constitutionalists who won't vote for one or the other candidate. That's what happens when you go low and you get personal and you attack character. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Here's a question off the top of my head. We may have 2, 3, even 4 Supreme Court justices who retire. Which of the candidates on that stage do you trust absolutely the most to nominate the right kind of people to fill those slots? Without a doubt, without question. Which? You better start thinking about that. Because that's going to happen. Should we win the presidency? And you're not going to want to cut deals over that either. You're going to nominate solid, constitutional conservatives, which much Republicans call, ideological purists. And yet they attack Trump and Cruz, and hey, you know what? They're inconsistent. They're not pure. And then if you are more pure, hey, what do you want, a purist? Forget about those people. They don't know what the hell they're doing. All right. The attack kept up on Sunday. The attack kept up on Sunday. Cut for ABC's This Week with Democrat George Stephanopoulos. Go.
Look, the truth is he's a nasty guy. He was so nice to me. I mean, I knew it. I was watching. I kept saying, come on, Ted, let's go, kid. But he's a nasty guy. Nobody likes him. Nobody in Congress likes him. Nobody likes him anywhere once they get to know him. He's a very, he's got an edge that's not good. You can't make deals with people.
You know, I would ask the people of Texas, do you like Ted? He's the most popular politician in the state. I think he's been endorsed by virtually every Republican congressman. So that's simply not true. He's not liked by the people we don't like. And why is that a problem? Yeah, right. By the way, people who... I want to tell you the difference between a website and social sites. The Mark Levin Show Facebook and Twitter sites are my sites. I own them. It's my name on them. I own them 100%. If you want to come on my social sites and curse, you want to come on my social sites and be a nasty person, as Trump would say, the administrator removes you. If you want to have a difference of opinion and engage, great. We like that. If you're excited about a particular candidate and you want to get on there and promote them and say, I support them, great. But I view my Facebook and Twitter sites as I view my dining room table. If you're going to be an a-hole at my dining room table, I'm going to take it by the scruff of the neck and throw you out the front door. These are my social sites. I don't go on your social sites and say nasty things. And I'm talking to the 1/10 of 1% who can't control themselves. That's the policy. I can't watch everybody on the social site. We have several people who do it. And that's the test. That's the rule. If people are intelligently or politely engaged, great. If they disagree with me, great. Who cares? But if you're going to be a jerk, you're going to go on there 100 times and just keep saying the same thing, you're going to get noticed. Just pointing it out. It's not a website where we count our hits and we publish our hits, because I don't care about hits. All right, you've heard several clips of Trump and the tactic he took this weekend. Now here is Cruz today in response. Cut 7, go.
You know, you're right. Donald did an interview where he described that he thinks he's bigger than Ronald Reagan. You know, I think the American people will make that determination. You know, I would note that Ronald Reagan spent decades as a principled conservative, spent decades traveling the country, sharing his conservative free market views, defending the Constitution. Ronald Reagan did not spend the first 60 years of his life supporting Democratic politicians, advocating for big government politics, supporting things like the TARP big bank bailout, supporting things like expanding Obamacare to turn it into socialized medicine. That's not what Ronald Reagan did. Ronald Reagan was a voice of consistency.
Is that nasty, Mr. Producer? One more. I won't bore you with the back and forth, but I think it's only fair that I play a cut one. I want to get to Rubio, too. Cut 8, go.
And I'm pretty sure that Ronald Reagan didn't write checks and support Democratic politicians like Andrew Cuomo, like Anthony Weiner, like Hillary Clinton. I'm pretty sure that Ronald Reagan didn't write a huge check to Rahm Emanuel in December of 2010. After, by the way, the big Tea Party wave, after the 2010 elections, I'm pretty sure Ronald Reagan didn't give Rahm Emanuel a big check. And so I understand that every Republican candidate tries to compare themselves to Reagan. But at the end of the day, the American people are going to assess who's telling the truth. Who is, in fact...
All right, that's enough. You see, Cruz is not Ben Carson, and I love Ben Carson, but think he's one of the most decent human beings imaginable. And there's a man who has saved thousands and thousands of lives, and he's been treated like crap. But Cruz is a step above when it comes to intellect and when it comes to the ability to debate. And that's one of the reasons they hate him. That's one of the reasons they hate him. You can just hear how he's developing his arguments, how he's thinking them through, how he's pounding away. Nothing nasty about it, per se. Nothing hateful about it. And so there you have it. But I really wanted to get to Rubio on Meet the Press. And this is what I want to get into, substantive issues. Because they're crucially important. Because one of these people is going to be president, or Hillary Clinton is. And I cringe at that thought, what will happen to our court system. You know, after Obama, Hillary gets on, it's over, folks. It really is. But here's Rubio on Meet the Depressed. Cut 11, go.
Let me ask you, by the way, quickly on the 11 million. Are you still for finding a way for them to legally stay in the United States?
Yeah, look, if you're a criminal alien, no, you can't stay. If you're someone that hasn't been here for a very long time, you can't stay.
Wait a minute.
I
Define criminal alien.
have a reasonable solution.
Define criminal alien. Isn't
How
anybody...
about